Okay, let's welcome back my old friend to me here, Coach John Grayson, who's now DC at Montini. Left Morton, was in our conference. We were frenemies for 2 years, so now we can be friends again, not frenemies anymore. Welcome back, Coach.
It's good to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, kicking my ass for 2 years. You can go now. You can be
I
gone.
don't, I don't know about that, but it was those were good games. It's good that we can talk ball again and not let any of our secrets go.
I don't have any secrets. I'm like, screw it.
Yeah, I don't really either. I put out a whole thing that several, well, I hope several people have bought, giving away all the secrets. So um, if you want to know what we're running, you just got to pay Throw Deep Publishing, and then you can see all the secrets.
I was going to say, now you're an author.
Yeah, I guess. My friends were actually making fun of me this weekend at the 4th of July celebration. They're like, yes, John, he's an author. I'm like, I wrote an article about cover three. It's not that hard hitting.
What team started doing?
Yeah, I clicked on it. I was going to look at it. Yeah, they can pay and have everything.
Yeah, there's some good teaser clips online. Working with Coach Kirby has been awesome. He's a good guy. He deals with my ADD and my forgetting deadlines and all of that stuff, and still asks me back. So he's a great guy to work with.
How does it feel to no longer be a teacher?
It's been different. I recently left teaching to take a job as a liquor rep for RNDC, Republic National Distribution Company. It's different. I'm in the car all day. I have 127 accounts, the whole north side of Chicago, and I like the fact that I can just like go to the doctor, like if I need to, um, just like get a text from the wife, hey, we're out of laundry detergent. I can just stop and get laundry detergent. Um, it's different. I miss the interaction. I miss being in a building, a big community. I'm basically solo. Like, my bosses tell me it's kind of your own little business that you run. So, I have every CVS, Walgreens, and corner store on the north side of Chicago. State Street's kind of our dividing line with my counterpart on the south side. So it's definitely different. It's just freedom. Like you're
Mhm.
outside, you're not in a classroom. You can, go get a Gatorade if you want one. Like it's just, I guess this is kind of how the other half lives, that's not in teaching and not, in a classroom or in a building or, if I want to stop and get a hot dog, I can stop and get a hot dog. Like, it's just a lot more freedom. But, in that sense, like I have to be very organized with my time because as a teacher, first period is from whatever time to, an hour long, and then second period comes. And so all of that stuff is kind of done for you.
Mhm.
So I have to be very organized with my time and, 100 and I think it's 127 last time I counted clients. You're getting a lot more phone calls. I have a work phone now. I'm really fancy.
Oh,
It's yeah, so people are calling, hey, my delivery didn't come in, and so you're dealing with problems, but just different problems. It's not, hey, why did my kid get a C? It's hey, I ordered 20 cases of vodka and they're a week late. I want to beat you up, and you're like, hey, let me call my boss and figure this out. So um it's different, but it's been fun and allowed some good flexibility, but no more summers off. So
mhm.
Monday morning I got to go to work.
Well, that's why when you were like, first when you said my boss, something about your boss, like, hey, my boss, I can't do the podcast today. I was thinking it was your wife for a second. And I was like, oh, yeah, because of summer. And I was like, that's when I said, oh, wait a minute, you don't have summers off.
Yeah, I took a day, the day after the 4th of July off. So we were supposed to do this on Thursday, I believe. Friday, Thursday, yeah, Thursday. And he wanted to go through, some of my clients, and I was like, I knew he was going to call me for a meeting. I'm like, I took a day, and he wanted to make sure that I was going to be on track for the rest of the month because I'm still kind of new and took some time to enjoy the holiday because this is still kind of my week off. There's no football this week, so a good day to kind of good week to kind of take a day and have some fun with the old buddies. But yeah, I knew he was going to call me for a meeting. But then I also have my other boss, who is my wife.
That's what I thought you were talking about. You were like, my boss. I was like, oh yeah, the wife. And then
Yeah,
I
but
was like, wait, he's not a teacher.
she loves it too. The freedom and when you get into teaching, they expect certain things from you, and it's I don't know if it's good or bad or what, but coaching a sport that you're not necessarily in love with just because you need a stipend to pay this or pay that. I don't have to do that anymore. And I you know what, honestly, I coached just about everything.
Mhm.
Boys volleyball, wrestling for a year, girls track, boys track, varsity basketball, girls basketball, besides football, and then freshman baseball, varsity base. I mean, I was all over the place, but it takes a lot of time, and that's my wife is a lot happier because as she says, she's like, I don't lose you for 12 hours on a Saturday because you're going to a track meet.
Mhm.
Um, and that part I've definitely enjoyed. Obviously I'm going to coach football regardless of what my profession is, but it's those other time consuming things that you kind of got to do to be a good soldier. Work a basketball game, it goes into overtime. Okay, now I didn't get home till 11 o'clock, but I got 7 a.m. workouts the next morning. I got quick turnaround, I got to get up, I don't have to do that stuff anymore. So
Mhm.
I think that stuff is good, and when you're a teacher, because you get to go watch your wide receiver play small forward, or your running back is a wrestler, so you're working a meet or working a game. You get to root them on. But it's kind of expected when you're working in a school, especially if you're a new guy at a school. Some of the people that have been there for a while don't necessarily want to do that. So you're expected to contribute, and that's what I would say is just the time. I don't have to invest as much time into a building because I don't have a building. I'm in my car.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, like this summer, I've been at the high school 12 hours a day in June with
Right.
basketball and football. So I
Hmm.
coach both. And so
Right.
I have to do both. Eventually, I have to give up one, then I do baseball at York. One of them
Okay.
I have to give up eventually.
Yeah. That's yeah. Once you start getting into married and babies and all that stuff, it's it's time to let some other young guy do that stuff. Give those jobs to Helton now.
I think he's older than me.
He seems like a young guy. It's just his enthusiasm. I think it's just the pure enthusiasm of Joe Helton. I think he seems like he's 21. Just a young, up and coming, hungry coach. But yeah, he's a dean now, so he's going to be at those things anyway.
Well, that's what I'm like, they're going to let you coach two sports and be a dean. He's like, yep. I said, okay. Don't know how you pulled that off.
Yeah, good luck. Busy man, but he's a good guy for the job. I love Joe.
I told him with the kids I work with, he'll see me all the time. See
Yeah,
me all the time.
that's Joe's another one that was a friend of me and is now on your staff. So he can give you more of my secrets. I guess
Oh,
that
I didn't
I
know
don't.
who he was. All the Addison people knew him because his dad used to be the superintendent. So they all knew who he was. And so they were like, oh, yeah, we're bringing Joe Helton. I was like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who you're talking about.
I don't. Yeah. But God, yeah, I loved working with Joe. I don't know if Joe liked working with me as much as I liked working with Joe, but he's a great coach. He'll do well wherever he's at. Um, yeah, he'll be a great addition for you guys.
If you hear that, it's my chocolate lab barking, but that's okay.
That's all right. I am, as I said, they're doing some construction near my apartment, so I'm at my in-laws, and she's having people over tonight. My mother-in-law, so cleaning and scrubbing and vacuuming, and just you've never seen a cleaner house in your life. So I'm hiding in the basement, hoping she doesn't come and vacuum me.
No, I think Helton told me one time, I was like, we were talking about something. He goes, I used to go up to John and like do the little rip move, and he'd be like, what are you doing? He was like, I just go
Uh,
up to him or do something.
he kick step
Or kick step.
all
Yeah, that's what
all the time, and like it'd be in the middle of practice, like the offense just, scored on us or something. So I'm, chewing on my pen, trying to figure out, something. And Joe would just come up to me and I'd be like, yeah, Joe, what do you got? And he'd be like, this is what I got. And I just, Joe, like, that's why I say he's like the 21-year-old kid. He's just young and enthusiastic. And he just, but Joe had an ability to, as I was, like I said, biting through my pen or, chewing on my whistle or whatever, just kind of bring a lightness to practice, hey, they hit a switch route on you or whatever it is. And we could figure this out. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to rip your practice plan up and throw a fit like a little child. So Joe's a good guy to have to kind of bring some lightness to your practice, because football can get sometimes a little I don't know, little too serious. I don't know. It's not that serious all the time.
Well, because he did that, and I think he was trying to get me to do that or something. He did it, and I was like, "Hey, that's not bad form." And I think he was trying to find the new guy he could do it to, because
He'll find him.
Our freshman line coach wasn't there all of June, and so I told Joe, like, "You're going to have to take him."
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, "What do you want them to do?" So I'm showing him, and that's when he did it. And I was like, "Hey, that's good form. You should go show him."
He'd do it to me all the time, or he'd do he'd do the bump your fist snail thing. What else did he do that drove me nuts? Tell me to shut up when I was going on rants on the headphones. We actually switched Joe my second year at Morton. He was in the booth, and we switched him to the sideline. And it was one of the best things we did as a staff, because that enthusiasm that I'm talking about just kind of radiated into the team and radiated into me too. I mean, I said I have a tendency to be a grump sometimes, and just watching him. I mean, if you watch our huddle film, just up and down the sideline, jumping up and down, and just kind of bringing an enthusiasm to the sideline that I think he was almost trapped in the booth. And it was like we let him out, and we moved our defensive backs coach to the booth, who's a very just kind of stoic, chill, like, hey, Cam, guy by the name of Cameron James, who I took with me to Montini, who'll be a head coach someday. I'm just waiting for him to jump. I mean, he's a great coach, great guy. But Cam is kind of more the chill, just, corner got beat on that play, just kind of gives you the information, and that's all he says, and so switching those two, I believe that was Coach O'Donnell's recommendation. I got to give him credit, because that was definitely not my idea. It kind of changed our whole sideline and the whole dynamic. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, Joe's going to be awesome at AT, and he'll be great with the kids as a dean. And yeah, he's made for education and for that spot. He's awesome.
Yeah, he came to our 7-on-7 O-line tournament when we went to Willowbrook, and I had to be the OC because the OC was gone for 3 weeks in Europe. So I got to be the OC all summer. And I said, "Hey, do you mind taking the lineman for the challenges?" And he was all about it. He was like, "Yeah." And then during breaks, he'd come over, and all of a sudden I hear somebody yelling, and I turn around and it's him jumping up and down. Yeah. And I was like, "All right."
Joe's kind of like he always had a monster. Like he just always just drank a monster. Like, there's no come down from his monster. It's like he just had another one. Like he just, we have a meeting at 7:00. Joe's ready to go. I'm walking in with the coffee, like half asleep, whatever. Joe's like, "Hey, I got an idea," and it's like, "Joe, let me finish the coffee before we get an idea." So he was kind of the spark to my curmudgeonness. I always say Cam James, the guy that was our DB's coach, I always say he's the yin to my yang, because Cam is so like just chill and just gets you the information that you need. And I'm the one that's like, we're never going to win a game again. We're never going to do this. We stink. We're this, we're that, just kind of losing my mind on the headsets. And I know I've lost when Cam goes, "All right, John, enough." I'm like, okay, if Cam turns on me, I got nothing left. So if Cam turns on me, that means Joe had already turned on me 20 minutes ago. So,
well, I met him in the weight room. We talked, and all of a sudden, I think he saw me with an energy drink, and that's how we talked. He was like, "Well, what energy drink?" Like, blah, blah. And I started telling him once to go drink. Next day, he comes in, "Steve, I got one of those that you told me about. They're delicious." And that's how we started talking, was just energy drinks. And then it just goes on from there.
Joe actually asked me to stop drinking energy drinks. He's like, yeah, you don't need any caffeine. I would actually like you to take a sedative before the games because I need you to calm down. So yeah, Joe, Joe is the enthusiasm guy. And like I said, we were talking earlier. I liked coaching with Joe. I don't know if he liked coaching with me as much as I liked coaching with him, but he's a talented guy and he runs a great wrestling program and he's going to do great at AT.
Well, we're gonna try to anyway. That's all we can do. Because now we got to switch everything up on the fly. But he's great. He's been great for our defense, even though he's freshman. We haven't done much with freshmen. He's been helping varsity.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised if we switch him. But like as of right now, that's what he's doing. His head freshman. I won't be surprised if we switch him. But
yeah, Joe. Joe is kind of that Swiss Army knife. You know, he did a lot of special teams for us at the end of about 2 games in last year. We decided to. I was real big on this because I had been a special teams coordinator. I don't really love the every coach gets their own special team thing. Because every coach runs every special team differently, and one guy will want to tackle on punt, and this guy just wants to go through as a walkthrough, and this guy calls him like the Air Force, and this guy, I'm like, just put it all under one blanket and one guy. And so Joe kind of became our special teams coordinator last year after, I think it was week 2, after we played York, which never want to talk about playing York at Morton again. Shout out to Coach Fitz for putting it on us. And Joe just kind of accepted the role and just ran with it. And then it was his thing. And I said, I'm like, listen, this is a young guy. Let's give him more stuff to do. And he did it. And it was, our special teams got better because he was, it wasn't, he was doing defense. I mean, he still coached outside linebackers for me, but, he was the special teams coordinator. So that's once you kind of have that name that next to your, it's like, okay, if we stink at special teams, you can't blame one coach here or one coach there or this coach there. Or, our kickoff stinks. We'll talk to this guy. And it's, hey, you're the special teams coordinator. We got to get this fixed, So, or hey, you're the special teams coordinator. Great job, great call on that fake or whatever it is, So yeah, Joe just kind of took that and ran with it. But yeah, Joe's going to listen to this podcast and be like, I'm the best. I am awesome.
I don't even know if he knows I have one yet. I don't think he knows.
You'll have to send him this one.
I keep that to myself because I think the kids found it. So I'm like, oh shit, kids found
it. Joe can send this out if he's ever looking for another job. This will be his resume. Yeah, listen to these 2 guys talk about how awesome I am.
Oh, he's in the AT now. He won't leave.
Oh, that's true. That's true. He just got a new job, so he doesn't need a resume. And
people
right from his house.
Yeah, people that get into AT in those type of positions, they don't leave.
Yeah, that's
they move on up.
He's as my guy Hawk Harrelson used to say, he's in the catbird seat. He's living large right now.
Well, until he starts figuring out what deans do over there, then he's like, oh, this is what I'm doing.
Well, Joe did. He was like a substitute dean too. He was. I think he was getting his master's when he was at Morton, and he was a substitute dean. My room was kind of like tucked off the beaten path a little bit. And he just on his lunch break, he'd just come sit and just be like, John, I don't even want to talk to you. Can I just sit? Like, yeah, Joe, take a couple minutes, man. You're good. I'm going to be watching Huddle here or doing something. Or it's like, I just need to sit down and I just need like 10 minutes. And then he'd get up. All right, back to work. All right, Joe, I'll see you.
I'll see him all the time. I'll walk in there all the time.
I'm sure. But yeah, he does. He's got a great temperament for being a dean and doing all that stuff.
How's it feel going back to Montini? Because you were there before.
Yeah, it's different. It's obviously it's no secret Montini's had 2 3-6 seasons. So that's not certainly the norm in Lombard there. It's been a while since Montini's been in a state championship game. It's almost like it's kind of hitting the reset button, and I think that's okay. Coach A was, I mean, the guy won 6 state championships and did things the Coach A way, and I think there was kind of a hangover for a little while of the Coach A way, and Now we're kind of just, rebuilding it, and we have it's a talented group. But Montini, being very honest, Montini benefited from being in a conference with no Brother Rices and no Mount Carmels, and
Uh-huh.
the last couple years I was there, I'll never forget. My first year at Montini was our first year in the Catholic League, 2014, and we went down to St. Rita. And on the way down there, we thought, hey, we're Montini. It doesn't matter who we play. We're Montini. We'll go down to St. Rita and play. And St. Rita had a lot of other ideas on that game. They beat the tar out of us and sent us back to Lombard, almost like they were offended a suburban team was coming down to the south side, uh, and showed us very clearly that we were not, in fact, ready for the Catholic League yet. And then in 2015, they came to us, and we got them pretty good. But honestly, we needed that. It's almost like, when we joined the Catholic League, we needed that punch in the face from Rita to wake us up.
Right.
And in 2015, we beat them. 2016, we beat Mount Carmel. I think in 2018, I believe Montini won the blue, which is the pride of the Catholic League. But it was like, without that wake up call, without that punch in the face from Rita in 2014, I don't know that we would have been able to do. I wasn't there in 2018, but I don't know that they would have had the success that they did. And it was almost like, hey, we needed a quick wake up call. And Montini hasn't made the playoffs in 2 years, but it's fun kind of rebuilding and being the team that everybody, I told the kids the other day, I said, guys, the IHSA has been waiting about 20, 25 years for this to happen. I said, so no one feels bad for you. I said, you've been, Montini's won 6 state championships. I think they've been in 9. I said, no one feels bad for you. I said, you haven't made the playoffs in 2 years after making it for 20 something straight years and being in 9 state championship games. I said, so it's just putting the work in and kind of getting back to that Montini way, that way of doing things. And, Coach Boo, I think it's Coach Bukowski is now the head coach. He took over in 2017. They were the runner-up in 2018 to Joliet Catholic. I think he has 17 state championship rings. This is the coolest part about Coach Boo. So he was the head wrestling coach. I think they won 10 state championships. Then he was the DC for the football team. They won 6 with him as the DC. And then he has a daughter who just became the head softball coach, ironically enough. But she played softball. So he took over the softball program and won 2 state championships there in girls softball. So he went from wrestling and football, this testosterone, just manly 2 sports, and took over a girls softball program and won 2 state championships there. Like, the guy didn't forget how to coach. He knows what he's doing. It's the school is behind, the rebuild and getting us back on track. So it's been fun. It's been terrifying. Being the DC at Montini Catholic is it's nerve wracking. Like we were talking about our schedule earlier. No disrespect to the league that we used to be in, or I used to be in. You're still there, but seeing Naz and Providence and Brother Rice and St. Lawrence and all those schools, Bennett and Viator, and seeing all those schools on the schedule, it's I better be ready to go. So it's the Catholic League. So if you're not ready to go, you're gonna get run over. So it's been exciting. It's been nerve wracking. It's been all of the above. A lot of emotions.
I was gonna say, it's gonna be like a college for you. Like, every single week, you're gonna have to be like
Yeah.
college game plan in there.
Yeah, there's no cupcakes on our schedule at all. It's like I said, but that's kind of what I've always aspired to get to, I guess, as a coach. I don't know necessarily that I want to be a head coach. It seems like a lot of work,
Yeah.
a lot of headaches, a lot of, talking to this guy about paying this bill about uniforms, and this little Timmy's going to, Florence for a month and whatever. And I don't know that necessarily that I want to do that, but I mean, being the DC at Montini is a pretty cool job. So um, I'm enjoying it. But like you said, yeah, it's like, rolling through the SEC. You got to be ready week in and week out, and if you're not, you can get picked off real quick. And you play some of those juggernauts. It's like, all right, let's play Brother Rice in week 8 and see
Yeah.
if we can slug it out with one of the premier Catholic League schools. So, but Montini, that's the thing about Montini. I feel like they've always risen to the occasion. Like I said, Rita cracked us in 14, and in 15 we got them pretty good. So, Montini's been down a little bit lately, and I think we have a lot of good, solid, hardworking, blue collar kids that are going to kind of rise to this occasion and get Montini back to where Montini has been.
Um, what's the transition for those kids being like coming because you run a 3-3-5, like
Yep,
everybody else in the freaking world now, especially our conference. Everybody freaking runs that defense.
it's a
Um,
pain. That's why everybody runs it.
well, the Upstate 8 really doesn't. Like one a couple did when I was at Lombard East, couple did, or they would just switch to it. Then I get to Addison, and it's like our first game in the COVID year was Lombard West. Very first game of that COVID year was Lombard West.
Yep.
I am very proud of this, though. We had the ball in them for 11 straight minutes that year for that game, that very first game. 11-minute drive. Didn't score, but we had the ball for 11 minutes.
Hey, sometimes that is a score. You take the air out of the ball for 11 minutes, and a team like Lombard West, who, yeah, I got their playbook. I mean, I've kind of made it my own, but it was like the the coaching tree of Chad Hetlett. He's the big 3-3 stack guy, and I worked for Jeremy Cordell, who's now in Missouri.
Mhm.
Worked for him at Glenbard South, which is where I was introduced to the 3-3 stack. And one of the great things he did, and I did it with Cam James when we were at Morton, is I was his outside linebackers coach on the varsity, but I was the sophomore defensive coordinator. And at first, I'm like, hey, I'm not getting any more money for this. Like, I don't want to do, like, there's a
Mhm.
lot more responsibility, man. And he was like, you're a 24-year-old coach. You're not going to make $1 million, but this will help you learn how to call a defense and how to, make it your own. And without that experience, I don't know that I would have, gotten to be a coordinator and climbed the ladder. So I took it from him. He worked it out with with Chad when they were together at Glenbard West. Tim Racky when I was at NAS, he was one of the early adopters of the 3-3 stack. So working with him and Jeff Tumpain, the defensive coordinator over there, I learned a lot, about the 3-3 stack. And now they're frenemies. I texted
Mhm.
them like, hey guys, take it easy on us on week 3. But I certainly learned a ton from them too. And yeah, it's been a little bit of a transition. Montini traditionally has been a 4-3 cover 2. We ran a little bit of 4-4 cover 3 in 2015, and that was more of a personnel thing.
Mhm.
We said our 11th best player was a 4th linebacker and not a 4th DB. And that ended up working out because the 4th linebacker that we had at that time ended up playing at Grand Valley State. He made a play in the state championship game against Crete. I think he guessed. He says he read it. But I mean, the kid, Nick Foster's his name. They ran a little bubble, and he was to the boundary. He was an overhang, and he hit this kid like a freight train. And that kind of set the tone for the whole game. Um, Again, him and I have had that. I'm like, you guessed. You didn't know that play was. I'm like, no one reads it that fast. He's like, coach. He's like, I had it. I had it down. I go, you know what? You're gonna go to the grave saying that. But that was a personnel thing. But yeah, Montini's traditionally been a forefront, and that's what I like about the 3-3 stack is, you're bringing linebackers and blitzing, and it essentially, if you bring one linebacker, it essentially becomes a 4-4 cover 3.
Mhm.
So, it's been a little transition, but it's the kids don't like being the Montini team that hasn't made the playoffs, or so they kind of have an edge about them and are really hungry to learn, and guys are asking questions and sending me messages on Twitter, and we've just installed our base stuff so far. So there's a hunger there, and the kids really want to, kind of, you don't enroll at Montini to play football to not make the playoffs, So,
Right.
and they in this Catholic League world, they have buddies that play at NAS, and they have buddies that play at IC, and they have buddies that play all over the place. And IC still winning state championships, NAS still winning state championships, and all of their buddies are looking over, going, "Hey, what are you guys doing over there in Lombard?"
Mhm.
And so there's a hunger, and the kids are on it, and it's been great to kind of get back there and you know um, work with Coach Boo. Coach Boo's been the defensive coordinator, I think, as long as I've been alive. So kind of he's been very open to kind of I don't want to say modernizing, but I guess modernizing is I don't know,
Mhm.
the defense and changing things. And for a guy that has how many state championship rings, not, more than can fit on two hands. When you start getting into the toes, he doesn't really have any reason to change. He can just sit there and go, "Do you see that giant box of rings? You
Right.
do you do what I say." But he's been very open, and a lot of the technological stuff that I brought over, Google Classroom, and using slides for your playbook and stuff like that. He's been very open to, because very honestly, he's sick of hearing it too. But as he said, and I said, and we've all repeated, no one feels bad for us. Not
Mhm.
one, not one team in the IHSA is going, "Oh, I wish Montini was better." Like, Montini's been great for 20 something years. So, um, we're going to try and get it back on track. But the transition's been great, to answer your question. It's the kids are hungry, and they want to, kind of want to get back to where Montini's been.
Well, there's a comfort factor for you too, though, for going back to where you were. So it's just like, "Hey, I'm here. I've been here before. I know what's expected."
Right. There's been a lot of changeover in the coaching staff, but yeah, it's working with Boo, and I don't know that I've ever met someone. Boo has a singular focus, and that's winning, and
Mhm.
and he will fight a grizzly bear if it means getting a win, and he said in our first staff meeting, he goes, "John's worked with me before," and I said, "Can I pause you right there, Boo?" I said, "That means I know what it is to work with Mike Bukowski, a guy, like I said, he will fight a grizzly bear if it
Mhm.
means we're going to get a week one win, or, whatever it is." I said, and it's just, I learned so much from him the first time I was there. And to be very honest, we didn't leave on great terms when I left to do my student teaching in 2016. I was down in Summit, I believe, was the town I was student. So that's nowhere near Montini. So yeah, I kind of worked out that I was student teaching, but we weren't necessarily on the greatest terms. I thought I knew a lot more about coaching than I did, and I
Mhm.
thought I was a lot more involved in our two out of 3 years there. We went to the state championship. I thought I had a lot more to do with it than I did. Um, so as a young, arrogant coach, obviously you're going to butt heads with the multiple sport Hall of Fame coach. And I actually wrote him a letter after my first year as the DC at Morton, and just said, "Hey, I was kind of a jerk, and um, you know, it's funny. We were just talking about Joe Helton, and I was jumping on Joe for something, and I kind of just had this moment where I was like, whoa, Joe's now the young guy that you're jumping on, and Boo used to be, used to be the young guy that Boo was jumping on."
Mhm.
And it just kind of came full circle for me, and it was just a very humbling moment. And I wrote him a letter, and I said, "Hey, I don't know if this is ever going to work out again. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to work together again. But I just want you to know, I really appreciate everything you did for me in my career. And, I get it now. You kind of get it when you're on the other side of it. It's
Mhm.
like, they talk about being a parent, and, it's like you won't understand till your mom or your dad. And it's like, oh gosh, like, yeah, they were right, so working with Boo and working for Boo is I learned so much from him the first time around, and it took me into the rest of my career. And yeah, there's definitely a comfortability being back with him, and being back with a guy that, like I said, will scratch, claw, do whatever he's got to do to get a win. And um, I'm enjoying it, definitely enjoying it.
Well, maybe I have a chance against Morton now that you're gone. Maybe I have an opportunity to.
I don't know that I had a lot to do with it. That was that was a talented group of kids. Obviously we didn't make the playoffs, but that was a good group of Morton kids that you know kind of wanted to end the streak to this streak at Morton. They haven't made the playoffs since Reagan was in that White House, but they worked real hard. We came up short in a couple games, but um, yeah, definitely a talented group of kids. I was just trying not to screw it up, I guess.
Um, the one where we were kind of rooting for Morton, and I don't care if it's on record, was the Willowbrook game. We had it on YouTube, and I was like, God bless it, because people at Addison were kind of tired of hearing about Willowbrook. And he
Yeah,
was winning, I think, and then like I don't know, a fumble happened here or this happened here.
that's
Oh,
another one I would like back. They called I watched the film. I was livid on the sideline. And Willowbrook's a great program. I
oh
mean,
yeah.
we were trying to outkick our coverage and get a win against those guys. And they were going lonesome polecat, and I think we covered that up pretty well. I mean, they still ripped off some big ones against us, but there was a touchdown that they called that I on my deathbed I'll say we made the stop, and that ref's arms went up quick. And it was week 9. It was Willowbrook who was going to the playoffs against Morton who wasn't. It was cold, it was rainy, it was and officials have a tough job. I'm not, this just particular call is one I disagreed with, but I think we made the stop. If we would have made that stop, I think the game would have been very different. But he threw his arms up real quick, and I was not very happy. Um, but hey, I guess officials make mistakes too, and I'm putting that one down as a mistake because I think we made the stop there.
Oh yeah, we I remember that they were like, "Hey, it's on YouTube. I think Morton's winning." So we turned it on, and then stuff started to happen. I was like, "Oh, I think I'm the jinx." As soon as I turned it, because we moved our game up because of the rain, I think. So we were
Yeah,
done before you guys even started. Because I think it was their senior night.
I believe so. Yeah, that
Or,
was yeah, it was like cold. It was just a crummy game, and like obviously, and then Morton's not going to the playoffs. Willowbrook's trying to get in. It's like, let's get this game over with, get Willowbrook to the playoffs, get Morton home. So we gave him everything we had. And Willowbrook's a great program. And I don't know that, we make that stop and the official rules the kid down that, we don't fumble or, Willowbrook's got a good defense. So I don't know how the next drive would have gone, but I would have liked a chance to see it. And I'm sure somebody will send me film of it after hearing this podcast going, no, coach, he was in. But from where I was standing and what I've seen, I don't think he was in. But um, yeah, that was that we gave him everything we had. And we had one of our linebackers had to take over a running back and had about 20 carries in that game. And I think honestly, that's the game this kid is playing running back at St. X next or this coming season.
hmm.
It's Xavier, and I honestly think that may be the game that, with that film, um, got him into play running back in college because he took the rock and he's a tough little sawed off. I'd give KJ about 5'6", 5'7", maybe. Um, but he was pounding the rock and he was like, "Give me the ball." He came over and he goes, "Coach, I got to play running back this week." I said, "We'll find something for defense. We'll figure it out, buddy." I said, "You just go take the rock and you run the ball." And um, yeah, again, we gave him all that we had. And again, I don't know that if we got that stop, we win the game or something. I'm not saying that cost us, but It didn't help.
But Morton always has athletes too. That's when I got to Addison, I realized that because the first year, the COVID year, it was a shootout with us. We won on the very 20 seconds left in the game.
Oh, Morton people are still mad about that game.
That's what Joe was saying. He was like, he was because the quarterback for that game, his brother's a junior now playing for us. So he came to the 7-on-7, and I went up to Joe and I was like, Joe, there's the quarterback. He goes, what do you mean? I was like, that's the quarterback that threw the touchdown. And he was like, come here. He told me, he's like, come here. And he's like, what? And he goes, we game plan to keep you in the pocket, and all of a sudden you're doing this, and this, and then boom, throw this touchdown. He goes, how dare you?
I mean, we talked. I loved that kid. That kid was like a Brett Favre gunslinger. I mean, just an absolute baller. I loved that kid. But I got hired right after that game at Morton. Like maybe because it was the COVID year.
Yeah.
So it was maybe 2 weeks after the game. And I mean, the Morton people, like I said, you walk into the coach's office right now and go, hey, COVID AT game, somebody's throwing something. They were furious. And I watched the film. It was a hell of a game to watch.
I mean, because we were down by like 2 scores. I think that's what we were down by 2 scores. Then we scored after halftime, and then something happened. We scored again. And then after that, it was just boom, boom, boom. And then every time the refs had to talk, it was a 5-minute conference. So Joe was telling us that. He was like, he looked at our head coach, who he knows Bazan. He's like, Bazan, because of you, they kept having to have a conversation about the refs. And he goes,
he's still mad. He works at AT now, and he's still mad.
I know. And I'm like, but you got to admit those refs weren't the best. And he goes, I know, but anytime you guys complain, they wanted to have a conference. And I was like, don't you blame us. We didn't do that. Don't you look at us.
Oh, I got hired about 2 weeks after that game, and it was just fire and brimstone, man. They're still, like I said, Joe works at AT now, and he's still mad.
Well, then we had a young coach started to yell, maybe at your guys as head coach. They just kept yelling at each other. They were starting to walk towards the field to each other, and we had to grab him, like, shut the up, like, quit yelling at the coaches.
That's not a guy. Bob Organ is not a guy I would want to yell at. I did yell at Bob Organ a couple of times, and I'm 6'1", about after the 4th of July, probably about 280. And Bob Organ played at Michigan State. He had a cup of coffee with Belichick and the Browns back in the 90s. That is a mountain of a human being. And we got into it a couple times on the sideline, just 2 gorillas bumping chests. And I'm looking at this guy going, I'm a big dude. Like I said, I'm 280, 6'1", and he's gonna crush me. Like Bob goes about 6'4". I mean, that's not a guy I would want to tumble with. And there was a couple times where I'm like, John, if you don't shut up, this man's gonna bonk you on the head, and you are going to be knocked out cold.
Yeah, I think that's what was happening. I think we were like, hey, you can yell, just don't yell at the coaches. They're not doing any
right. And don't pick that coach. Joe, yell at Joe. Joe's a much nicer guy.
Well, I think I said that. I was like, you see the big guy you're yelling at? Why don't you pick on that guy over there? It wasn't Joe, it was somebody else. I have no idea who it was. I was like, that guy's smaller. Yell at him.
There was a couple times where, I was getting on. I remember we were playing Downer South, and Downer South that year I think it was 2014. Lot of holding from them. I mean, obviously I'm a defensive coach, so I think they hold more than they do, but I'm like, coach, I'm like, you're the biggest guy in the whole stadium. You got to get on those guys, get on those officials. We need some calls. And he looks at me, he goes, hey, shut up. And I was like, oh, it's like kind of when your dad uses your full name or something. Like I was just like, oh, I'm going to go down. I'm going to check on some kids. Wherever you're at, I'm not going to be around because I think I overstepped. But I will say, and Bob, I don't know, Bob was so mad at me that he started yelling at the officials, and we got a holding call. Now, on the same play, we got a sack, which still breaks my heart to this day because we finally get the holding call. Guy throws the flag, and our defensive end beats the tackle, and we get a sack. And I'm like, we couldn't have done this on back-to-back plays instead of on the same play. But yeah, there was a couple times where I got under Bob's skin a little bit, and he just kind of looked at me with those eyes and that mountain of a man body. And I'm like, oh boy, I've overstepped. But one thing I will say it's great about Bob, what happens on the field stays on the field. We went to his house every week after the game, win, lose, draw, and he'd have a cold beer waiting for me. He'd kind of look at me and go, hey, you were a jag tonight, and I want to punch you in the brain, but you know what? I appreciate all your efforts, and we'd laugh about it after. And I think there was only one time we didn't talk until Monday, but I went into his office. That one was my fault. I went into his office and I was like, hey, hand up on that one. That was me. I'm sorry. And he's like, thank you for apologizing. We're good now, But yeah, if I was a coach on the AT staff, that's not the guy I would pick to yell at. That's a big dude.
Well, because then we all start, because he starts yelling. If they start yelling, then we want to yell back. And then I'm like, look what you started. Like, we don't want to, like, we could be competitive and all this other stuff, but like, why are we yelling back and forth? And I told Joe that, and Joe was like, yeah, you guys were yelling stuff. And I'm like, we weren't yelling at you. It was this guy yelling at us. Like, it wasn't us.
But that's the young coach mentality. You just don't know until you know. And then, you're the old coach and some young guy's yelling at you and you're like, oh, buddy, you're going to learn one day,
Well, the only thing Joe was mad about is because the clock operator was screwing up and the refs were not the best. So when Morton scored, we got the ball with like a minute or less than a minute. There was a couple of times that clock would roll when it was supposed to stop, and we're freaking out.
Right.
So our D-line coach, who played in college, he played at Concordia, is following the ref. He's just following him, making sure, like, stop the clock. Tell him to stop the clock. And he's like keeping track of the time because those refs were just not. And that's what Joe got mad about. He goes, you guys were telling him about the clock. And we're like, no, don't start that. No.
I don't know. Like I said, whoever does and the game was at Morton, correct?
Yeah, it was at Morton.
The clock. There's been times with the clock that we're like, we're not getting any home cooking on our own. Like, who is running the clock up there? Like, we're turning around going, we just lost 4 seconds. You're supposed to be like. I always say that, like, when we go, like when I was at Montini and we would go, I'm back there now, but when we go to a Southside school, Brother Rice, St. Rita, wherever, I'm like, guys, if you think we're getting any help from anybody down there, like, we're from the suburbs. Yeah. I'm like, these are tried and true Catholic league. I'm like, we're not getting 1 second. We're not getting one call. I'm like, they're mad that we're even down there. Well, I like when they play each other, though. I went to Brother Rice Marist last year, just to watch, just to be a fan. And that's one of my favorite things to do. Just go to a high school football game and watch the other coaches. And like, you don't get a lot of chances to do it when you're coaching, but just watch. And just our running backs coach, Brian Manfrey, his son goes to Brother Rice. They live on the south side, and and he does the film, and he got us, really cool sideline passes. Getting a sideline pass at Brother Rice Marist, you feel like you're an absolute celebrity. Like, and then I know Steve Nye, who coaches at Brother Rice. He had the big assist on getting us the passes, but like you walk in and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is hard to do down here. But I like when they go against each other, because then nobody's getting any help because they're both Southside schools and they're both. But yeah, that at Morton a couple times, I'm looking up, going, wait, aren't we at home? Why are so many seconds clicking, ticking right now? Like, we're supposed to get a little home cooking here. Like, no, okay, we'll just keep playing.
Well, that's when we had our old headsets and they wouldn't work at Morton. It would pick up the fast food behind there.
We heard that from a couple of schools, and that was not a Morton thing. We were not advanced enough to do something to screw with your headsets, but it was just where the stadium was on Harlem there, and a lot of traffic, and it would happen to us too. You get give me a biggie bag and a large Diet Coke. It's not a call in our playbook, but yeah, I would like one of those too if you could run one over to on the other side.
Well, then we got new headsets, and we came to you guys this year. We had new headsets, and they worked the whole time. We were in shock. We were like, "Oh, it's working."
Yeah, it's like right where the stadium is, right on Harlem, and you got there's a couple places across the street, but Yeah, no, we weren't advanced enough to have some sinister plan to screw with your headsets.
No, I
We're
guess
just
that
we're just trying to get our guys lined up.
it was always a thing though. AT said that it's like every time we go to Morton, something happens with the headset. So it's been a thing for
Oh,
years,
okay.
just because of how it's located.
Sure, yeah.
And they would say that, like, oh, you can hear Raising Cane's order on the thing, and you're like, oh, bring that over. Like, just come on over.
Yeah, hey, if you're just delivering, we'll take it over on the sideline. We're the guys. We got the white jerseys on. Yeah, that's. I love that stadium though. That
I
was one.
love it. Love
It's
it.
right on Harlem. I don't know when it was built, but it's like the big brick. Like I say, for my money, that's the nicest weight room in the state of Illinois. I know Niles West has like a legit like health club in their school.
Mhm.
I've been there once for a track meet, so they might beat us or them. I don't work there anymore, but um, that they gutted that whole thing. Josh McMahon is the assistant superintendent and got together with Bob Organ, and they've had 3 ADs in the time that I was there, so I can't necessarily identify the AD that got that all done, but um, what a cool place. It's like a big warehouse, and there's sleds and everything, but that stadium is awesome. And it's cool. I mean, Morton hasn't had the success of some of the schools, but it's a co-op. So
Yeah.
you get all the parents from Morton East, you get all the parents from Morton West, and they get together and they pack that place. And it is a cool deal. I think we only played one game there. I think we were playing Leiden. There was like 4 rain delays. So there was like 100 people in the stands, and it when it's empty, it's not as cool because I'm calling a defense, and the guy from Leiden's going, "I think they're blitzing." Like, oh, there's nobody here, huh? You can hear me, right?
But I loved it. We went there in that COVID year, and I was like, the travel there sucks. But once you got there, I was like, I love this field. I love the home stands. I love how it's located.
Yeah, right on
And
Harlem. You get a truck that drives past, or whatever.
the light show thing they do when you guys like at halftime, like
Yeah.
the touchdown, I like that.
I don't know how they got those. I don't remember the story exactly, but it was like it had something to do with the New York Giants, I think, and someone knows someone, and that was like a test. Like they
Hmm.
installed them because they didn't want to install them, obviously, for an NFL. And I might be butchering this story. They didn't want to install them for an NFL team before they had all the kinks worked out. And so what happened was Morton, somebody knew somebody, which I found out at Morton, like legitimately everyone is connected to someone. Everyone has an uncle that's on the board, or everybody has a sister that was, the president of the United States or something. It's a very connected school, but yeah, they were like, hey, come install them at Morton, work out all the kinks, we'll get brand new lights, and you can do whatever you want with them. So yeah, the light show was really cool for our introduction. That was something that was like you know I don't know how they worked it out, but it was really really a cool thing to see, and got the kids really pumped up.
The RAD was in the end zone at halftime when we were all figuring out. And I looked at, I was so mad. I was like, I have to go talk to somebody about something else. I walked over and I was like, when are you gonna get us those lights? Kind of angrily. I was like, when are you gonna get us those lights? And he was like, Steve. And I was like, I'm just mad. I'm mad.
Yeah.
I need to talk about something else.
Just general anger. I'm just yelling things. I don't know. Like, sorry, I just needed to yell at someone.
He's like, I can look into it. And I was like, no, never mind. And I walked away. I was like,
I don't even want them. I'm just angry, just yelling about something.
I know, I literally would do that. I was so mad. And I was like, well, because I was hoping we'd have another shootout, even though it was stressful from the COVID. I was like, please let this be the time where we have like something. And it just
Yeah,
didn't do that. And I'm like, okay, well,
I hate shootouts. We had one with Proviso East my first year there. I literally walked across and told their quarterback to transfer. I was like, I was like, I mean this with all due respect, but I honestly hope I never see you again. I was like, and we won. We scored 63 points. Like we were in control the entire game, but this kid, they went empty. This kid would get the ball, and it would be like, the Looney Tunes, and he would just run around. And I mean, what a special athlete. And I was like, dude, I don't mean to say their offense is like Looney Tunes, but him running around was like Bugs Bunny. Like, I'm like, dude, please transfer to another school. I never want to see you again. This was the longest game of my life. I was so exhausted. And those shootouts, like, give me a 10-6 all day long as a defensive coach. I'm like, oh God, I hated that game. Yeah, shootouts are obviously, you're an offensive guy. You love a shootout,
Yeah.
but not for me.
Love it. We got to play both provisos back to back this year. That's the only thing.
So I think there's a push now. And I don't know if it's, this is what I've heard through the rumor mill, to make them a co-op.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Like, that's been talked about. They're trying to figure it out. And if it happens,
That's
watch
trouble.
out.
That's trouble, because every team that I've coached on, I mean, legitimately every winning team from I was at Naz, I was at Montini, 3 or 4 starters should have gone to one of the provisos. And if I interviewed at Proviso East in 2018, and I said in my interview, I said, if every kid that was supposed to go to Proviso went to a Proviso, you guys would win a state championship every year. So if they can make that into a co-op and get their youth program to stay, get a hold on that youth program. Cameron James, my DB's coach, played quarterback at Proviso East. And he talks about it all the time, and I agree with him completely. That look out, man, because that is going to be, and again, just like no one feels bad for Montini, no, Proviso is not going to feel bad for anybody when they're running it up, because they got guys everywhere now. Staying home and being part of that co-op, that's going to be wild.
When we heard that, we were like, can we petition to put them on the other side then?
Yeah, if they're going to be a co-op, they got to go over to Silver. We're not fighting with them.
Like, can they just go over there? And they were like, they're just going to stay.
We'll add a team to the gold side. We'll find somebody to add. Why doesn't the co-op take Proviso West side over on the silver, and they can play Hinsdale Central and Glenbard West and Lions, and that side can deal with the co-op. We'll find somebody to take their place.
Well, Glenbard East wants to come over.
Okay, that would be a great team for the I always get them. It's funny. The more prominent side is the silver, and gold is the team, the side with, a couple teams that are still trying to get to the playoffs and do that kind of thing. But yeah, Glenbard East would be a perfect side for the gold.
Well, I came in and stirred the pot. I'm like, you know what? What if AT went to the Upstate 8? Like, that would be perfect, except we'd have to travel to all the Elgin schools, and that would suck. Sure. But they were like, nope, tradition. Well, then Walters texted me and he said, hey, what if we just switch spots? You take our spot, we take your spot. And Bates over there, their athletic director, said, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, if I were to text them right now, they would do it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
We won't budge. We're like, nope, we're going to stay right here. And then, but Glenbard East still wants to come over. They tried to play us week 2, and I was like, no. He texted me. He's like, you guys want to play week 2 next year? Because they're changing their conference up. They're West Aurora's coming back. Okay. And who else is coming? Ridgewood's going. RB's going. I think maybe Elmwood Park's going.
That makes a lot of sense geographically. I mean, getting from Ridgewood to one of the Elgin or Aurora schools is awful.
Well, they're going to the Upstate 8.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Those 4 schools are going to the Upstate 8.
Okay. Elmwood Park, I live in Elmwood Park. They just hired a new coach. So yeah, that's that. I mean, the conference changing is crazy to me. But look what it can do. Talk much, John. Like at Glenbard East, they were in the DVC for how long, and they weren't a DVC team.
No,
they were in that area, and they just kind of kept it, and were everybody's homecoming game, and then all of a sudden they switch conferences and they're making the playoffs every year. Mm-hmm. At that point, that was the DVC, with when Wheaton Warrenville and Naperville Central and all these teams are just hammering people. And, Glenbard East is taking it on the chin, but now they change conferences and look what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that stuff is always very interesting to me. I get into it with the college guy, the college changing, and I can't wait for that UCLA Rutgers game at 9 o'clock on a on a Saturday morning. Like, I don't know. That all that stuff is very interesting to me, and it's very interesting to me also, like, you know the ebbs and flows of teams. Like, look at Lombard West. They were always very talented, um, but would miss the playoffs, make the playoffs, but send a kid to Stanford, send a kid here. Chad gets hired. Now they're, in 2015 they were nationally ranked, and it's the ebbs and flows of teams is always just very interesting to me. And I'm in one of those. I don't know if it's an ebb or a flow at Montini, but you know, Montini was, everybody's, and nobody wanted to play Montini, and they were the juggernaut and this, that, and the other, and had some of the best high school football players I've ever seen. I mean, Jordan Westerkamp, Niall Sykes, any Borsellino, just pick one of them. I think they were all state, the ones that played at Montini. So, all those guys. Now Montini's again, I don't know if it's an ebb or a flow, but um, it's just always interesting to see the changing of the guard. And when I was at NAS, Coach Racky would talk about, we 40 pointed Joliet Catholic the year I was there, and he goes, I remember, I just wanted to get our kids out of the Joliet Catholic game safe. He goes, it's so big and so bad and so nasty, and we just wanted to get out of there without any injuries. We didn't even care what the score was. Just get us out of here. And he goes, we just 40 pointed Joliet Catholic. And he just said, he goes, he sat in his office after the game, and he was just like, I can't believe that just happened. Like, I remember 10 years ago, like I said, just no injuries, getting our kids out without getting their heads torn off of their bodies. Because Joliet Catholic was here and Nazareth was here. And now, at that point, it was actually, I say it's like that, but Joliet Catholic won the 5A state championship that year, beat Montini. Naz that year, we won the 7A state championship. So it's just, I don't know. It's always been fascinating to me, kind of the ebbs and flows, coaching changes, a district changes boundaries, and you get kids from this town or whatever it is, it's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, now because the Upstate 8 was playing each other every single week because they have 10 teams. Well, now they're adding this. They have to go find one or two non-cons now.
Right.
So now they don't have that. And I don't know how they're going to structure it. It might be by enrollment. It's either going to be by location or enrollment.
Honestly, location should be a big factor, because sometimes some of these games, it's like getting out to, for a sophomore game, getting from, Ridgewood to wherever at 5:30 is like, holy cow.
Well, like the D-line coach for us I was talking about following the ref, he's now at West Chicago. He's their DC.
Okay.
Then it makes sense. He wants to do enrollment because then they can compete because they're in a situation where they're trying to build it up. He goes, if we do location, we're going to have to go play Lombard East and South Elgin and this, and that. He goes, if we do my enrollment, Lombard South would be like the one that's going to beat them.
Right.
But they could play Streamwood. They could play whoever.
Right.
Have an opportunity. Then you got Coach Walters at East. He goes, they better do by location because, I'm not traveling all over the place.
Right. Lombard to West Chicago for a 5:30 sophomore game, or a 4 o'clock freshman baseball game. Like, forget it. Like, you're dead. You gotta get the kids out of class early. It's like, you got to get on a plane. I remember when I was in high school, we were in the I forget the name of the conference. Suburban Prairie Conference, and we're playing Sycamore and DeKalb and Kane, and leaving from Glen Ellen to get to DeKalb. Like, it's an overnight trip for a freshman baseball game. Like, this should be, I always feel like you can figure out enrollment and location and make an advantageous conference for everybody,
Yeah, they don't know. And then West Aurora coming back. Well, I feel bad for East Aurora. That's the one I feel bad for, because if it's by location, maybe, but if they go by enrollment, they're going to be the biggest enrollment. So they're still going to have to play Bartlett's and South Elgin. And I feel so bad for Coach and them, because I'm like, they got to go play West Chicago and Ridgewood and all that. But to travel from East Aurora to Ridgewood or Riverside,
yeah, you got to take a plane.
Oh,
it's yeah, I get it, but like we were just talking about that UCLA Rutgers game. Like there's no one of the things that I hated about playing in that Suburban Prairie Conference is there's no like geographical rivalries. You know, I'm not gonna bump into a kid from DeKalb at Yorktown Mall. You know what I mean? Like back when back when we went to the mall back in the day, you know, to hang out, like
Yeah.
we'd see like Lombard East kids and we'd be like, oh hey, like, do you know so and so? Like, there was no. It's fun to play kids from the areas that you live in, and you know you grew up with a kid, and you know like when Morton plays RB every year, week one, there's so much crossover,
Right.
just because the two towns are so close to each other. But you know that's fun to me. That's
Mhm.
that's bragging rights. That's you know you see your cousin who goes to this school at Christmas, and you know, hey, we beat the tar out of you, whatever. Like that makes it fun, that makes it competitive. But like Ridgewood, East Aurora,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like I nothing wrong with either program, but there's no, like I said, there's no, you're not gonna bump into a kid at you know Harlem and Irving Plaza from East Aurora. Like it's not
Right.
gonna happen, you know.
Well, that's kind of we get frustrated because where Swift Road is,
Mhm.
that whole side of Addison goes to Lombard East.
Right,
And so that's why he wanted to play because then some Addison kids would be playing Lombard East kids and they're like, they know each other because they grew up by
right,
Swift Road. But they'd also probably, Lombard East is in a way different position than we're. He had 60 some kids on his varsity team last year.
right, right. They're and that's they're on the you know the come up. They're the Lombard East is a tough out now, and it's you know when you start winning games, it's amazing how many kids stick around. You know
Mhm.
when they were in the DVC, I'm sure they had 35, 40 kids, you know, on their varsity team because it's like, dude, do I want to go through 4 days of practice to get my head kicked in by Naperville Central? No.
Or have to travel all the way out to Nequa.
Right. Go play Nequa and get 60 pointed? Like, no. So when you start, you know, winning games, kids stick around and it's amazing how much better your program is.
Well, coach, I kept you out here for a while. This was great talk for Illinois people. If they know, they know.
Right. That is, we stayed pretty Illinois centric, but if you just want to look at our handsome faces for people from out of town, you know, you got a solid hour of that.
I may have to tell Joe that I have a podcast. That may have to happen.
That's all right. I talked very highly of him. I owe him a couple, so I talked him up on this podcast. Hopefully he'll love me.
He's going to kick slide me every day. I already know he's going to find me in the hallway and just bam.
You can't avoid it. You can't avoid it.
Well, coach, I appreciate you coming back on.
Yeah,
Uh,
thanks for having me.
good luck at Montini.
Yep. I will we'll be rooting for AT and good luck to you guys this year.
Yep. Thank you so much.